admit this. My mom is a CPA, she is an accountant. So I don't really know how to do my taxes either. I know the papers you need to have, and I get them and put a paper clip on them, and I take them to my mom. She does my taxes for me. So now, if it ever happens, one day, eventually, my mom's not going to be able to do my taxes for me. I feel like then I need to do them just to say I can. But I know which papers you need to have. I got the idea of generally how it works, but I've never done my taxes. All right, so a percent. You guys talked about this some yesterday. It is a ratio compared to 100. If you think about the word, per means for every. Cent is going to mean 100. If you think about a century is 100 years, or a centimeter, there are 100 centimeters in a meter. A centipede doesn't necessarily have exactly 100 legs, but it's got bunches of legs, right? So cent means 100. There are 100 cents in a dollar. So it's your amount per 100. So you guys talked about this yesterday. If I want to change 0.23 to a percent, it would be 23%. What about 0.07? 7%. So you guys have that. To go from decimal to percent, you're going to multiply by 100 is what you're doing, which moves your decimal 2 places to the right. Your decimal should always be smaller than your percent, right? So, go ahead for these 8 right here real quick. Go ahead and change all of those to percents for me. Good. All right, so let's go over these. Alyssa, what'd you get for number 1? Perfect. Jada, what about number 2? Very good. A lot of people want to put 3 for that one. But when you move it 2 places, if you got a blank spot, you got to fill it in with a 0. So very good. Let's see. Presley, what about number 3? Perfect. 123%. Zane, what about number 4? Okay. It's the same rule every time. So you move the decimal 2 places every time, right? Which would put the decimal right here. So it's going to be 1.7%. All right, Vince, what about number 5? It's not 3.0. It's not 3%. It's 300. Because where 3 doesn't have a decimal, where is the understood decimal? Right behind the 3, right? So it's the same rule every time. We're moving this decimal 2 places. If you got blank spots, you got to put zeros there. So this would be 300%. Okay. Passion, what about number 6? Very good. 80. Easton, what about number 7? That is perfect. And Ayla, what about number 8? Perfect. 340. Because every time we're moving that decimal 2 places, if you got a blank spot, you're going to fill it in with a 0. Okay, questions? Good here. All right, let's change all of these percents to decimals. So this time, you're taking your decimal. If there's not one, it's at the end of the number. You got to move it 2 places to the left, and if you have any blank spots, you'll fill them in with zeros, so we would get 0.07 for that first one. So try the rest of those there. All right, so Zach, what would you get for number 10? Very good. So 0.123, you're just moving that decimal 2 places to the left. Julian, what about for number 11? Nope. It's going to be 0.003. So that decimal right there, you're going to move it 1, 2 places, and so you got to fill that blank spot in right there with a 0. So this 0 right here before the decimal is optional, but you got to have 2 zeros before that 3. Yeah. Yeah. So the 0 in front, you can put it there or not. It doesn't really matter. but you got to have 2 zeros before your 3. All right, Wade, what about number 12?
Well, I got 0.05.
Perfect. Okay. Let's see. Hank, what about number 13? Very good. 0.2. If you want to put the 0 behind the 2, you can, but it's not necessary.
Yeah, that's all I
Yeah. If you want to put the 0, you can, but you don't have to. All right. Peyton, what about number 14? Perfect. 2.50. Or you could just do 2.5. Any of those zeros on the end you don't have to write. Okay? Laura, what about number 15? Perfect. It seems wrong when you start getting so many zeros, right? But 1, 2 every time, and then you got to put that 0 right there. So you got 3 zeros before your 5. That's why it's really important that you understand what that means. Like if you have a 0.05% chance of something happening, it's a pretty small chance, right? It's not very likely. There. And then, let's see, Katie, what about number 16? What will we get? 0.8. Very good. Some of these can be a little bit tricky with maybe putting an extra 0 or not, but it's the same rule every time. All right, so that you talked about yesterday. The reason it's going to be really important is because the calculators that you guys are using don't have a percent key. And honestly, you don't need a percent key. In fact, I find that students that do use calculators with percent keys are more likely to mess up rather than less likely to mess up, right? If you understand how to go from decimal to percent and use that, you're much better off. Because if you, let's see, does Desmos have a percent key? I don't know. I don't ever use it. Ever. I don't think it does, but I do think if you type something like 10%, oh, this is kind of cool. We'll look at what Desmos will do. 10% of 250, it'll tell you what it is. So when you type a percent, like if you do 25%, it automatically puts percent and then puts of behind it, and then it'll do like 725. Actually, Desmos is kind of cool. So I'm just typing in like 25%, and it's automatically putting that of there, and then it'll figure it out for you. But I may not let you use Desmos on everything, and we just need to understand how to do it. So if I want to find a percent of something, I'm just going to multiply that decimal for that percent by the number. So let's see. Oh, I forgot to make you guys get your calculators. Everybody go put your phones up and grab your calculators because we're going to need them enough that it's worth it to do it today. Sorry. I should. Okay. All right. Okay, so if we want to find 40% of 267, we just have to multiply 40% times 267, but we have to change that 40% to a decimal. So, Caroline, what is 40% going to be as a decimal? Very good. And then we'll just multiply it by our 267. What do we get whenever we do that? 106.8. And always with these, ask yourself if it makes sense, because it's been a while. But Miss Gillum, there was a couple of years Miss Gillum was in my class whenever we were teaching this, because she was like my EC. She wasn't my assistant. She's a teacher, but she did EC, so she was in my class to help her kids that were in there. And when I taught this, we would sit back in the corner and just watch and say, if we ever wanted to rip off a bunch of people, this would be a good place to start, because some of the students would get answers that do not make any sense, right? So we're finding 40% of this. It needs to be a little less than half, right? And 106.8 is a little less than half, so that would make sense. Yes. Still not working. Great. Just go ahead and grab one of these that somebody's not got right now. Get number 1, because I think it was Allison's, and she's not here. Always ask yourself if your answer makes sense, because we would be given problems like a shirt costs $30, it's 20% off, sales tax is 7%, and some kids would get answers like $723. And they would not question themselves and they wouldn't say, hey, Miss Hyatt, this can't be right. That shirt can't cost $723. They're just like, oh yeah, $723. Always always ask yourself if it makes sense at the end of the problem. All right, so 60% of students at Elkin High School play at least one sport. If there are 375 students in the school, how many play a sport? Okay, what would we do, Julian?
So you would make the 60% decimal.
Very good. What's that going to be?
0.6.
Good.
And then you would multiply it to 375.
Very good. Because we're finding 60% of 375.
You'd get
225 students. And always ask yourself, does that make sense? That's a little more than half, so that seems about right. 60% would be a little more than half. All right. I want everybody to figure out how much the sweater costs on their own. Okay, try number 19 on your own. Are you going to do this one, Wade? Or you have a question? Okay. All right, I'm going to give another minute for everybody to try this one. I'm going to see what you do. All All right. So Wade, what would we do?
So you gotta change the understood decimal.
Okay.
You move it from the understood decimal, which is 75.
Uh huh.
The left two places, which make it decimal 35.
Very good.
Then you times that by 60, which will give you 21.
Okay. Is that your answer? It's not right.
That's what I thought. I was like, this can't be.
Because
Subtract the 21.
so that's your discount. This is your discount, which means you got to take 60 and subtract that 21, and it's $39. So you can imagine your disappointment if you've got $25 in your pocket. You're like, oh, this sweater's only going to be $21. I can afford it. And then you get up there and they tell you it's $39. You're like, oh, guess I'll go put it back. You take the walk of shame to go put it back. You don't have to do that, right? You guys are in the situation, like adults typically use cards most of the time. So, you want to be careful because if you've only got $25 in your account, you don't want to go spend $39 because you're going to overdraft and have fees and all kinds of stuff. It's not a good thing to be doing. But you guys probably mostly still pay with stuff with cash, I would think. At this point, you guys, I don't know, maybe you've got cards. But, so, if you've only got $30 in your pocket, you can only spend $30. There's not extra money there, so you got to be careful. And it's just generally a good idea to know how to do this. Now, I want to teach you a shortcut. So this is where, and we want to be learning shortcuts on all of this. It's not optional. You have to. Because it also leads into what we're doing with our exponential growth and decay. So, normally, you have to pay 100% of the price, usually, right? If it's not on sale, you pay 100%. Unless you're shopping somewhere like Belk's, which everything's always on sale. You never pay full price on anything there. But full price is like a ridiculous amount, usually. So it makes you feel like you're getting something whenever they say it's 35% off. Alright, so if you go and you buy something that's 35% off, that means that you're paying 65% of the price. So sometimes I'll say if it's 35% off, that means it's 65% on, right? You're paying 65% of the price. So watch what happens if I do 0.65 times 60. Same answer. Only one step though. Really only one step because I'm doing this in my head really quickly to figure out the percentage, right? So I don't have to do that subtraction. It also keeps you from making that mistake that Wade made that I'm almost glad that he did because a lot of kids do it where you think the discount's actually how much it costs, right? So this is a shortcut that I want us to start using. So let's look at some more problems. All right, here's some insurance stuff. This is some real life stuff that you need to know, okay? Bob has knee surgery. He has a $1,000 deductible and 70/30 co-insurance. The hospital bills Bob $14,000. How much does Bob pay?
For a knee,
That is probably low.
at that point,
I think it's really low.
at that point, you get crutches.
It's insane what stuff costs. And it all depends on it depends on so many different factors. Insurances vary wildly. What people pay for stuff varies wildly. I had to have an MRI. Oh, is it MRI or CAT scan? I think it's a CAT scan. I had to have a CAT scan because I had some problems with my back. So I went to the hospital. They sent me to the hospital to get the CAT scan, and the girl told me it was going to cost me, or she estimated with my insurance, it was going to cost me $1,200, $1,200 for this CAT scan. With insurance. I have insurance. that Elkin City Schools pays for me every, month. They pay a bunch of money for me to have insurance. I don't have to pay. I have to pay a little bit, but not that much. Not much comes out of my check for it. But I have insurance. $1,200. So I asked her how much it would cost without insurance, and I could pay for it without insurance, and it was $305. So I went ahead and paid for it without insurance. Now, it didn't count towards my deductible. The way it works with insurance is your deductible is the amount you got to pay out of your pocket. So, like, Bob here has a $1,000 deductible. That's a pretty low deductible for health insurance. So that means Bob has to pay $1,000 of his insurance, like whatever medical problems he has, he's got to pay for $1,000 of it just straight out. But then after that $1,000, they're going to insurance will cover 70%. He has to pay 30% of what's left, right? So because I just paid for it out of pocket, nothing went off of my deductible. So like insurance wasn't acting like so if I had something else happen, I'd still have to pay that deductible. Whereas if I had paid the $1,200, then that would have went off of my deductible. So if I had something else happen, I would have already met my deductible for the year. But it was a risk I was willing to take for $900 because that was a big difference. Yeah, everything was fine. And I didn't end up like needing that deductible like later in the year, so it actually turned out just fine. But at least it was only $300 instead of $1,200. Hunter had to have a CAT scan one time because it was a work day or after school, I can't remember, and he was sitting like on the back of one of those chairs, like sitting with his butt on the like metal part right there, just balancing there, and he fell back and landed like on top of his head, like he flipped, and then his stomach was hurting, he was going to throw up, so I took him to the doctor anyway and had a CAT scan. That one cost me $900. That was before I knew about just paying for it in cash. So anyway, Bob here has knee surgery. I feel like this is a reasonable estimate for a knee. Here, $1,000 deductible. So that means that Bob definitely has to pay $1,000, right? He's got to pay that much. So he has paid of his bill. He has $14,000. He paid $1,000 for his deductible. That means he still owes $13,000. So what it means to have 70/30 insurance means that insurance pays for 70% of the price, and you have to pay for 30% of the price. At least at school, our options for our plans are 70/30, or you could have an 80/20. Usually that's the case with a lot of insurances, but there could be different ones like 90/10, or you could have some that pay 100% after a certain point. So of this $1,300 or $13,000 that Bob still owes, he's going to have to pay 30%. This is Bob's part, right? So if we did $1,300 and multiplied it by 30%. 1,300 30. We got 3,900. So 3,900. So he already had to pay $1,000. He's got to pay another 3,900. This knee is going to cost him $4,900. There. Insurance paid the rest of it. And like I said, it can vary wildly depending on what kind of insurance you have. What you'll be charged. Pretty good. I mean, reasonable. The really good, I'll show you, is it the next one? Okay, this one is actually my hospital bill. So I'm disclosing to you my hospital bill here. So when I had Henry, I had a different kind of insurance when I had Henry. It was still school insurance, but it was $85.15, which is actually really good. And there was like this health spending thing. So this is actually what the hospital charged me whenever I had Henry. This does not count some of the other bills that I got from, like the doctor and the anesthesiologist and the other like bills just come from everywhere, and you just eventually, like LabCorp would bill me things, and I would just assume, I guess they were right. So the way the insurance worked whenever I had Henry is I had a $1,500 deductible, but I also got like $600 in my health savings plan. So there was like already $600 in the savings plan that I could use towards that. And then after that, it was $85.15. So when I had Henry, the hospital charged $16,000. This is for, just in general, a regular birth. I did have an epidural. There was no C-section. Pretty straightforward. No complications or anything. So a lot of times what the insurance, like if they had just billed me, it would have been $16,000. Insurance a lot of times negotiates a discount. So insurance negotiated a discount of $7,000. The question is how much did I have to pay? So what insurance negotiates the bill down first. So $16,000 is what they charge. They usually charge more than insurance is going to pay. I guess hoping insurance will pay it. So insurance negotiated a $7,000 discount, so that leaves me $9,000. Yeah. So $9,000 is what's left that's got to be paid. So my deductible is $15,000, but 600 of that was like put into a savings account, sort of thing. So 600 of this is going to be money that's already in that health savings account that I didn't put there. So I'm going to count like I'm not really paying it. So that's $8,400. So I've already paid $600 with my health savings money, so that leaves $900 more that's got to be paid on the deductible. So I've definitely got to pay $900 for sure. Right, this is what I pay. And so I'm going to subtract $900, and that's going to give me $7,500. And so I paid $900. I got $7,500 left. What percent of that do I have to pay? 15%. So I'm going to take 7,500 and multiply it by 0.15. And that's 1,125. And so that's going to give me $2,025. Now, this was just the hospital bill. There were other bills like from my doctor and from other stuff. What actually ended up happening with Henry is the thing that's the best about state insurance is it has a really low out-of-pocket maximum. So, like, maybe the out-of-pocket maximum might be like $5,000. So if I end up paying more than $5,000, insurance covers it 100% after that. So what actually ended up with Henry is I hit my out-of-pocket maximum. So I had to pay whatever it was at the time. I don't think it was $5 then. I think it was a little bit lower. And then insurance covered everything at 100% after that. So with like state insurance, if you have anything major done, it usually gets you to out-of-pocket maximum. They cover everything else. So that's the best thing about state insurance. As far as like your day-to-day, it's not bad, but it's not exceptionally good. But this is why you hear people upset about medical bills often. This was for just regular. It is, but medical bills are better than other things. They cannot take your house for medical bills, or you're more likely to be able to negotiate for medical bills than you are for, like, you just, if you just go buy cars and houses you can't afford, they'll take them back. So medical, there are some protections for medical bills, but it can still cause a lot of difficulty. But most insurances do have out-of-pocket maximums. So, like, for example, if you end up in the hospital for 100 days, they might as well tell you owe $1 gazillion, right? It's going to be like through the roof. If you're in a terrible car wreck, end up in the hospital for 100 days, have multiple surgeries, like, I don't even know what your bill is going to end up looking like, but it's going to be crazy, right? Like something you could never ever pay back. So that's why most insurances are going to have those out-of-pocket maximums. So if you have something like that happen, you might have to pay a lot of money, especially if your out-of-pocket maximums are high. Sometimes they might be $20,000 or $30,000, but it's much better than the $1 million bill you probably owe. So, yeah, if you have insurance, and if you're in the hospital for 3 years, then I'm not sure how it would work actually for 3 years because it resets every year. So, like, it's on every calendar year. So, like, if you were in a terrible car wreck, and we're in the hospital for 100 days right now, then that would be on this year. Well, then if maybe like in October you were in another terrible car wreck because you were a bad driver and keep causing these awful car wrecks, then, like, you basically wouldn't have to pay anything for the second one because you had already met that for the year. But if it was the next year that you had the second wreck, then it'd start over again.
So what do people do when they have like awful illnesses and have to be in hospitals for like a really, really long time?
I'm not sure. I mean, most people are probably going to have to, it depends on what their insurance is like. Most people are not going to be in the actual hospital they might be in the hospital for 100 days, but usually they get you moved out to like a rehab facility or a nursing home sort of situation if it's long term. So that is not going to be quite the same. But this is sort of how insurance works, so it gives you an idea what you're doing there. All right, so let's look at finding percentages. This is something my husband had a major gripe about at not the job that he's working at now because he only has like one person that works for him now. But whenever he worked in Winston, he had to meet like certain percentages on making sure that jobs were finished and seated. Like North Carolina has a law that if you disturb more than an acre of land, meaning like you turn up the dirt, that it has to be seeded within 7 days of finishing the project. So when you see road construction projects, if they're not working on that area, if that area is like just sitting there for a little while, they are supposed to seed that area. So they're supposed to plant grass on that area to keep all the dirt from washing away. So like one thing he was having to do was like report what percentage of jobs were actually seeded within that amount of time, like they were supposed to, and which ones were not. And the guys that were working for him couldn't figure out the percentage. Like, they couldn't figure it out. So percentages are just part of a whole. Actually, that's going to give you the decimal, and then you'll change it to a percent. So last month, Todd inspected 29 out of 32 job sites. What percent of his job sites did he inspect? Okay, so we're looking for the part he did inspect. So our part is going to be the 29, the part that he did inspect. The whole is all of the jobs total. How many jobs total were there? 32. And so if we do 29 divided by 32, $90625, and that is a decimal. Let's change it to a percent. So, Julian, what would that be as a percent? We're just changing this from a decimal to a percent. So,
90.6.
right. Yeah. And depending on what I ask you to round to, I might just ask you around to. I usually try to keep at least one decimal place for percentages there. Or you can keep all of it, it's fine. So 90.625%. So he did inspect 90.625%. This is the reason I couldn't come to work yesterday, because it was January 31st and he had to finish up getting his jobs inspected for the month. So he can write reports and stuff from home, but he can't inspect. Alright. In a recent thunderstorm, 2,750 of the 4,106 residents in Elkin lost power. What percentage of the population did not lose power? Now you gotta be really careful with these, because if it says not, it might be looking for the opposite here. So, who can tell me what to do for this one? We need the part over the whole. Alright. Okay. What do you think, Marley? Okay. So tell me that one again. That'll be good enough right there. So what percentage is that? It'll be 66 point, let's just go, well, I'm going to go 975. So I don't want to round that. I have to round it up. About 67%, right? Is that our answer?
No.
No. Why not?
Because
They did lose power. So, 100 is the total of everybody, right? So if you've already figured it up this way, you can do 100 minus the 66.975. And we get 33.025%. Did not lose power. Now, you might do that differently. You might know a way we could do it differently. So, I did part over whole. I did the part that lost power over the whole, right? Another way I could have done this, I could have done the part that did not lose power over the whole. So another way I could have done this is if I took 4,106 and subtracted 2,750, that'd tell me the number that did not lose power. So I could do 1,356 over the 4,106, and that would give me that same answer. So you could do that either way. Alright. Ty buys a computer that costs $700. Store is having a 15% off sale. How much does the computer cost after the discount? Let's use the shortcut on this. So if it is 15% off, it is 85% on, right? Or you have to pay 85% of the price. So Passion, what is 85% as a decimal? Very good. And so we want 85% of 700. So what would we have to do there, Passion? We want to find a percent of something. What do we have to do? Not subtract. We're going to multiply, right? So we're going to take 700 and we're going to multiply it by 0.85. This will find 85% of 700, right? So we'll do 700 times 0.85, and we'll get 595. And that seems about right. Okay, questions? Try 25 on your own. All right, Easton, what will we do on number 25? Noah buys a guitar that costs $900. He gets 30% student discount. How much does the guitar cost after the discount? Very good. So 30% off is the same as 70% on. That's the percent you have to pay. And so how do we find 70% of our 900? Good. And what will we get there? Good. Very good. So if I do 0.7 times 900, 630. Okay, let's talk about sales tax. Now, sales tax is added to what you have to pay, right? It's not a discount. It adds to what you have to pay. Hunter was wanting something. He was wanting me to order something the other day, and he brought his money in there. He's like, "Mama, I've got the money," and it costs like $150, and he said, "I've got enough money. Look, I've got $151. That $1 will cover tax." It's like, Hunter, do you understand how tax works? It's like it's 7 cents for every dollar. So we got to do 150 times 7 cents. Oh, look, it's going to cost like $17.50 for tax. You don't have enough money. So sales tax is added to what you've got to pay. So the way I want us to think about the shortcut for sales tax. Okay? So with sales tax, you have to pay 100% of the price. Right? You got to pay every bit of this $1,200 that this lumber costs. Plus, you have to give Roy Cooper 7%. Actually, you're not giving it all to Roy Cooper. Some of it's local sales tax. Some of it's Roy Cooper. Some of it's the county commissioners, I guess. And sales tax varies a lot from state to state, and even county to county. If you ever check your receipts, sales tax here is usually not the same as sales tax in Winston, because you have like a basic sales tax that's a state sales tax, but then each local community can charge a little bit more sales tax onto it. So 7's pretty standard, but it varies.
I don't know why this is, but New Hampshire doesn't have any sales tax. Like,
Yeah.
it's just not a thing. I don't know why. But it's not.
Some states choose not to charge sales tax, so they've got to get their money from somewhere else. So, like, they probably have to have a little bit higher, like, either business tax or income tax. So they got to get their money from somewhere, and they're taxing somebody somewhere, but not at the register. So, the good thing about sales tax is it's very equitable, and you can't get out of paying it, right? Everybody pays the same amount of sales tax, and you can't, like, cheat on your taxes for sales tax. The bad thing about it is somebody that has $10 has to pay the same percentage of tax as somebody that has $10 million, right? Where if you've only got $10 and you're trying to buy food for your family, you know, you're going to So some income tax is graduated, where if you don't make as much money, you don't have to pay as much tax. If you make lots of money, you have to pay more tax. Sales tax is just standard across the board. So states vary a lot on what they charge for sales tax. In North Carolina, you're going to see it around 7 most of the time. So that's going to be 107% of the price that you got to pay, which if we change to a decimal is 1.07. And then we multiply. So we'll have 12,000 times 1.07. You're right, it's 1,200. And so we got 1,284. That sales tax starts to make a much bigger difference when you're talking about more expensive stuff, right? If you go buy a pack of bubble gum, sales tax is just going to be a few cents. It doesn't matter. Hunter was thinking sales tax was a few cents all the time because he doesn't usually buy expensive stuff. But the more expensive stuff you're dealing with, the bigger amount sales tax is. So if you're buying, he was wanting like a smartwatch thing. Yes, we've ordered it. We'll see if it.
What is it like?
It's like, well, he was wanting an Apple Watch, which I would have let him get, but you can't have, like, Apple Watches will not connect to, they will not connect to just the iPad. You have to have a phone, and I'm not getting a phone. So, he's got like a Garmin version. He's getting like a Garmin version of it. He had some money. He's got birthday. So this is probably not a good idea. He breaks and loses things a lot. So, but I guess it's his money for him to be wasting. So. But we'll see how it goes. I'm also afraid it's going to be like way too big for his wrist too. We might have to send it back. It's been a major headache because if you don't have a phone, you can't connect a smartwatch to much of anything. And I'm not getting a phone yet. He's not happy with that. He needs a smartwatch to tell him all the things he needs to know about.
My cousin has a weird watch. It's not like a smartwatch, just like this one, but it tells him his stress level and blood pressure, and it's crazy. I don't know where he got it, but I don't know why. His life battery or something. Like if it reaches 0, he's about to pass out or something. It's weird.
I will say I was during my bout with the COVID, I was checking my heart rate and my oxygen levels a lot on my watch just to make sure I was still hanging in there. Because I've been sicker. I was not that sick. I ran a fever for a couple days, but you know, with COVID, it's kind of like whenever you are sick, you just worry that it's going to get worse. Because for some people, it does get worse. But thankfully, we were not too sick. Ella has $1. A pack of chewing gum costs 95 cents. Sales tax is 6.5%. Does Ella have enough money to buy the gum? All right, so sales tax this time is 6.5%. So you got to pay 100% of the price plus 6.5%. And I'm writing this down just to be really clear, but this part you can do in your head. That's 106.5%. What is that as a decimal? 1.065. We're going to multiply that by the price of the gum. 95 cents. Right? So if we multiply these together, we're going to get 1.01175. I think cash registers are going to automatically round that up to $1.02. Although technically it'd round down to 1 cent, but I feel like they have like a round up algorithm there where they always round up. So you need $1.02. Does she have enough money? No. But usually there's a little bowl next to the cash register that people put their change in. There are 2 pennies in the change bowl next to the counter. Can she buy the gum? Yes.
I heard the cashier just
They might, but
Sometimes they're missing like a nickel or something. It's just something stupid, and they're like, it's fine.
sometimes they may. But they have to, like, they have to pay for it if they do that. Like, their register has to come out right at the end of the day. So, if they are off 5 cents, they've got to put 5 cents in the register. So, that is why they may occasionally do it for a few cents, but they're probably not going to do it all the time. And they also are definitely not going to do it if you're like $20 off. Okay. All right, so we did not get to these at the end where we've got discount and sales tax. So that certainly is a real life situation that we're going to look at. Because we didn't get finished with everything, I'm not going to give you the whole assignment, but I did want you to do a few of these. So let's just do the front page, okay? So we'll do the front page. Yes. It's 1 through 21, but it is the first like 14 are just changing some decimals. So it should not take you more than 10 or 15 minutes to do this. And then we'll finish these up tomorrow, so don't lose those. Just the front page is all